We're smooth 98.1 FM. Good morning and welcome to Freshly Pressed. It is time to get into all of the headlines this morning, and we've got our newspaper analysts getting ready to do justice to the headlines this morning. But before we get to the analysts, let's make you also welcome to Freshly Pressed. We expect you to be part of the conversation at every point. Send your thoughts across reacting to the newspaper headlines this morning onto 0809 That would be as WhatsApp message. That's the medium to get your thoughts across this morning. And then, of course, you can race down to youtube.com/smooth 981 FM Lagos. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Then you can always go back and see past edition of Freshly Pressed and other segments of the show. Just be part of it and leave your thoughts there also. We're sure to see it. You can also tweet at smooth. Well, you can also X at smooth 981 FM on what used to be Twitter. It is platform X, owned by Elon Musk. That said, good morning to gentlemen who are here to look into the papers. I want to say good morning to Lakunle. Yusuf, good morning to you.
Morning, Omas. Good morning, everyone. I hope that our lights has now been switched on.
Okay. I can't say the same of my location, but you might want to let Lagos know if yours is an exception anyway. But let's make welcome Devoe Okorie, who might have his own switched off, even though we can't see him. Maybe that's the reason why. Good morning, Devoe.
Good morning, Lagos. Morning, world. Amas Lakunle. A new day. A cool minimum wage on top of power grid on or off.
All right. So if you're ready now, let's begin the papers and let's see when on the note of the minimum wage, which Devoe has already alluded to, we go to the Daily Trust newspaper where the headline screams, and it's an order. President Tinubu gives finance minister 48 hours to present a new minimum wage template. That's what it's saying. Find me the figures, make it possible. No excuses. Look for the commas and the zeros and adjust and get back to me in 2 days. Devoe, walk us through the story. And if you're Wale Edu, what would you be saying now?
Well, I guess many people in the nation are still reeling from the one-day national shutdown of literally all the industrial sectors protesting the inability of government to sign the National Minimum Wage Act as well as reverse the electricity tariff. However, in a deft attempt to try and assuage labor, the secretary to the government of the Federation, George Akume, called for a nocturnal meeting with the presence of the finance minister, the NSA, the labor minister, to try and get labor to come back to the negotiation table. That meeting ended up with a response we got yesterday from the government that the presidency is committed to negotiating a price higher than 60,000, whereas labor went back to its stakeholders and agreed that they would give the government 5 extra days. So it's that 5 extra days that the presidency has now called a few instructions out to the finance minister to more or less work out the numbers. So that because the essence is that the presidency is not an opponent. They want to push a message that they are on the same table with the people and that the welfare of Nigerians come first. However, I don't know. I feel a bit concerned because they've been on this for such a long time. So you kind of wonder what numbers is the finance minister looking at? They've known their numbers since. The Minister of Labor has always said that the books have been open. One thing of note to put on the table is that both Labor and the Minister of Labor have adduced that it's not really the federal government that's the issue. They literally have had the capacity to pay increased fares. The organized private sector has had their own concerns, whereas the major challenge has been the subnationals, that's the states and the local governments, who have not really been as committed to this initiative simply because they know their financial positions. So what I see happening is a case whereby, almost like it's always been, the federal government will come to some level of agreement with labor and will go ahead and pay it. The arrears will be backed up as far as April, since the last minimum wage act expired. But the state governments will struggle, will continue struggling. That's what I see happening. That's what I see as the outcome here. Because we cannot, I don't see labor shutting down Nigeria again, because I'm not sure many people will be able to cope. You can imagine how many people were not able to eat. Hospitals, clinics, aviation, flights canceled, big meetings shifted. What do you call it? So many plans that should have taken place, man hours lost in the country. And I don't see that happening again. So unfortunately, this will fall back on the states, and Nigerians as residents will have to take up this problem as to how they can make their state governments and local governments productive. Right now, this is what they call the rooster is coming home. And we need to address these issues. These are glaring issues. Many of our states are, as they call them, unprofitable. Only about 6 out of 36 of them are breaking even. The rest, I don't see how they're going to cope, but this is what I see as the final outcome of this matter.
All right, noted, Devoe. Let's go over now to Lakunle. Lakunle, let's pick up the Vanguard newspaper, which you're looking at, and it speaks this headline: the federal government targets a 4.4 billion US dollars petrol import savings yearly from CNG usage. So in essence, something as much that is so economical that would be beneficial to the government, one would wonder why it's taking this long for us to embrace it wholeheartedly. And now we see a finance minister who will be running from pillar to post looking for zeros and the commas to shift. See this kind of money if we had gone into this initiative a while ago. You're muted.
Okay, so when I first saw this report, the first thing that came to my mind was 890 million. So when and how? We know how long it took us to go to where we are with the LNG project, which was started in 1977, designed to have 6 trains. We just achieved those 6 trains maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I think. I hope I'm correct. So this 4.4 billion annually to be saved, effective when? What do we have on ground today in terms of this? The coordinator of the Presidential Committee on Compliance and Facilitation of the Compressed Gas Matter, Engineer Zayan Tambari, said these things like they were looking to convert 20% of current petroleum users in Nigeria. What is on ground today? When are we starting? Sometimes in government, when they say some of these things, we don't see the timelines that comes with it to give us the confidence that it will happen. This particularly is something that would save us money, yes, because Nigeria is has the largest gas reserve in Africa, I think, and maybe the 3rd or 4th in the world, some in that range. We are at the top at both levels, right? So which means that it is an industry that we should really invest in. I hope we can really do this. But my problem with this is the idea that when some of these things are said, we don't put timelines to them. How soon can we get started? Converting cars to these things, they have specialized storage tanks to store this thing. It's just like you have a water of 10 liters and you are compressing it to 1 liter. That's what it's supposed to be. Because what has the idea of compressed natural gas? You reduce the size of gas. Maybe you have 100 liters. You reduce it to 1 liter. So that's what gives you the work. So you need to have specialized storage tanks. Where is the factory that is making that specialized storage tank in Nigeria? Are we importing from where? What is the cost to the people? So those kind of breakdowns are the things that we need to start to see. that will give people the idea that we can do this, we can make this happen. And these are the things that we need to resolve to get to as quickly as possible. I hope that also that the next then level would then be that we need to start discussing sensitization. We need to start discussing the safety of these things. We need to start having all those things in public space so that by the time we are ready to go live, right, a significant percentage of Nigerians will be aware of the pros, the cons, the do's and the don'ts of having these things. And this is where we need the National Orientation Agency, the news media, traditional and online, to start to push this agenda. It will be something that I would love to have as a person, because when you look at the world is moving away from liquid fuel, fossil fuels as we know it. And so if gas is what is going to replace them, we need to be ready for that time when the whole world will shut the door on fossil fuels.
All right. All right, that's it. Now, when will these savings become reality is the main question. It's not about intention. It's about what we do to make the intentions become reality. So let's go over to Devoe. Devoe, you would have a double on your hands this morning, as you would help us string two stories together because they're related. So first, let's pick up the Punch newspaper, where federal government reiterates commitment to food security. That's from the Punch newspaper. And then we'll then move over to pick up the next paper, the next story, which is connected, where there is a warning of malnutrition cases surge 100% in Nigeria, children dying. That's what MSF, the Médecins Sans Frontières, raising the alarm there from the Vanguard news story. Devoe.
Right. Well, it's literally I call it the two pain points of this nation, what we're suffering. I hardly count insecurity because insecurity is the function of these two working. At the top of the list is energy. You have to do with petroleum products and power, electricity. Resolving that literally resolves lots of our insecurity issues. And also the number two pain point is hunger, that's food. Food inflation is at its highest. I think it's on the books is 40%, but in real time with what people are experiencing, people are seeing double and triple prices in the markets. So in this article, the vice president at an event with the IIT, that's the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, the renowned institute of research and innovation in the agro sector, was speaking to the nation's commitments to achieving food security. What is food security? Food security simply means that the nation can feed itself. It can produce, as Buhari used to say in those days, kill what you eat or produce what you eat, right? And then hopefully, from an economic point of view, have enough to export and create some revenue for the country. Unfortunately, we hardly export, and we don't even meet up with all the indicators in terms of local production and sufficiency. Farmers, and those in the agro-processing sector to actually improve yields, etc. And not much is said about it. But here again, they said they will continue working. The vice president said they will be looking at private public partnerships to be able to achieve this target. My only concern here is that they spoke about assisting smallholder farmers with innovations. Now, I do a bit of agriculture myself, and I must say that Nigeria needs daily flogging. Daily. I mean,
you mean figuratively?
Figuratively and literally, because this is a nation, and we can't not stop repeating the blatant facts and truths that a country that has been given the components of agriculture. You need to travel around the world to realize that Arab land is a big deal. Arable land, that's land that you can grow and harvest, okay? land that doesn't need much fertilizer. I mean, if you check our soil, you'll see worms inside them. That shows you the fertility involved across many, many acres. Arab land is so and remember, not just for cash crops, but also for livestock. But here we are in a nation, we struggle to meet up with these things. And even where we struggle, we end up creating more insecurity issues because we cannot address an organized fashion in carrying this out. Now, my problem is this focus of what they call smallholder farmers as subsistence farmers, people who use holes and cutlasses. We cannot continue at that level. Holes and cutlasses will not give you commercial yield. It will not take you to food security because you're feeding about 180 million mouths, okay, bellies. You need a constant supply, both dry season and wet season, to be able to meet up on these targets. Nigeria, as the big brother, literally should be supplying food to other parts of Central Africa, West Africa, and exporting because we have the capacity. Now, at what point is the federal government in line with the Ministry of Agriculture, in line with the subnationals who own the land, in line with the local government, going to address with this public-private partnership initiative mechanized farming? Mechanized farming gives you thousands of yield of hectares of any product to be able to get you to that point. That is what should be the number 2 state of emergency agenda for this nation.
So, Devoe, let me
now let me tie that to the second story.
Before you tie it on, okay. I want to stay with the IITA, their research body. So the question now is, how easy and accessible are research findings to go to these farmers?
Well, they are available. And what I would say is that the problem is, like I said, these things need funding, okay? Even where they have attempted to fund them, you know that the Anchor Borrows program, that was a brilliant initiative by the last administration, was dogged and literally made nonsense of because of corruption. At the end of the day, the 10 trillion that was supposed to get to about 250,000 smallholder farmers nationwide, it didn't do more than 25–30%.
So take us to this malnutrition now.
Because we are deficient in food production, clearly the second story just speaks straight to the outcomes, whereby a lot of our children are dying, which is what I think the UNICEF and some of the World Médecins Sans Frontières is saying, that malnutrition is just the inability to eat basic nutrients. And these basic nutrients just, as they say, a balanced diet. You're eating your proteins, you're eating your carbohydrates, and you're eating your vitamins in proper portions. But when you cannot afford good food, when you cannot afford sufficient food, you will not get your nutrients. Like in some places, chicken and rice have become luxuries. They only are eaten at Christmas. That's even if they can afford it. These days, many people literally, if it's beans, they can't even get enough of it. They take swallow, which is purely carbohydrates, and then they mix it with bomo. Bomo has no nutritional value, just as a taste of meat for those that even get. These are the things that kill children up front. And remember, food is equal to medicine. Good food, organic food is equal to medicine. When you eat organic food, your body has the natural nutrients to fight off a lot of diseases that you will come across as you're growing, so that our children are not getting this balanced diet. What happens is that I'm afraid to say, we go back to those days when we used to fight all those funny diseases like river blindness, some of the tropical incommunicable diseases that many parts of the world have eradicated.
That takes me to Lakunle. Lakunle, you have some words for food right now. So let's have your response to this story where this warning is coming from.
Okay, so I'm going to start from the question you asked just now about are we doing enough about information to get these research breakthroughs to our farmers? It's two ways. One, we're doing enough for those who knows where this information is or are. On the larger scale, we're not doing enough because, like Devoe said, much of our agriculture is subsistence farming. Those guys, they have access to their radios, they have access to a few hours of power to watch TVs. And in that time that they have, I'm not sure the information as to what research institutions are turning out get to them as at when due. A few weeks ago, a few of my friends and I were having a conversation. I said, do you know it's possible that Nigeria can make a lot of money from grains as maize? This is the season for maize, right? If all the state governors, for example, commit to 1,000 hectares of land in each state, and that means that we have 3.7, is it 3.7 or 37,000 hectares of maize grown in 4 months, and we can do that 3 times in a year. And the harvest that can come from there with what we know that IT has done with maize, for example, right? So by and large, the commitment to be able to feed ourselves lies in the hands of the state government, who are the landlords. If a state governor says, I'm acquiring 1,000 hectares of land today to grow maize, the effect is that, okay, it is the people of that state that is going to be employed to grow the maize, to do the whatever form of agriculture they want to do there. They are going to harvest it. Some people are going to be employed. So the effects will be huge, and then ties it to the second story about malnutrition. Now, some of us grew up with the luxury of having been able to eat the canned processed milk that babies had. How many babies today that are born to Nigerian parents? And I mean it, when I say Nigerian parents, I'm not talking of the upper class people. I'm talking of the middle and the lower end of Nigerian social stratum. How many can afford those milk today? So you find a lot of them resorting to other means of feeding these children. Granted that they say that the first 6 months or up to 1 year, exclusive breastfeeding and all that. But beyond that, nutrition is not just about having food to eat. It's about in the right proportion and with the right nutrients in it, right? So if we're not even able to produce enough, knowing that 75% of Nigeria's land is arable, you don't need to do anything extra to make them work. So the commitment that we need is not even with the federal government. The state government are the primary source of achieving this ability to feed ourselves. IIT has been in Nigeria for 50 years. I think that for those of us who are privileged to have information about what they do, we know that 30 years ago, maybe we'll be able to do maize once a year. Today, we can do maize 3 times in a year because of what they've done. We knew that cassava grows once a year before. Now you can do 2 in a year because of what they've done. So we need to start to see the effects of this result that these guys are doing on the field.
All right, fine place for us to begin to see messages waiting now. They can't wait, still pouring in. We need to reach out to them before we come back to you, Lakunle, for the next paper. So earlier on, this Tunji Oladimeji sent in a message. It sent me a cut from the Daily Times from way back 1979, dated Friday, November 16, that showed the pay of the vice president, the head of service, party leaders. It's just a bouncing off of the minimum wage story. That's where, that's why it sent that one in. So we appreciate Tunji Oladimeji. As a matter of fact, looking at it, the vice president of the Federal Republic back then is expected to have earned, should have earned 30,000 naira. The Senate president was looking at 22,000 naira, as what I see here recorded. The Speaker of the House was 20,000 naira. Our minister was going on with 16,000 naira. I can go on, but there are messages to pick up.
Minimum wage that year was 120 naira.
Okay, so let's return to Lion King has a message for us this morning. It says, salutes to Joe Ajaero and other leaders of the trade union that shut down the country during this short strike action. I'm impressed. It's been a long we had such a strike action, unlike what we saw years ago at Ojota rally that was bankrolled and organized. And then it goes on where Nollywood actors, actresses, musicians, pastors, clerics were all there, and laureates, propagandists, and all just goes on. Quite a lengthy one there, but that's what it says. Effective, it calls it. Now I find a message in here. Okay, that's not for us. This next one, Veronica Uju says, well, I wish Labour had moved on with the strike until an agreement was made. One, this government just doesn't give, well, the D word about us. They waste how much money to sit to find a resolution and still nothing. Aren't we and their ministers and other government aides like SGF supposed to be speaking on behalf of the government? Why does it result to now having a meet with the president and then take photo ops? This is also ridiculous. We are, as Nigerians all together, are to come out and fight for ourselves of a good governance. And then next I find Ajayi Oloniluwa from Magodo GRA Sherry says, well, in other countries, the Minister of Labor would have resigned for allowing negotiations with government labor degenerate into this crippling strike action. Nigeria will continue to fumble and tumble as long as no government official is held accountable for policy failure, Ajayi Oloniluwa's thought. And Tunji is next coming up with this one. Says, why can't we roll out the CNG? It's simple. We need natural gas piped to every locality. We need mother stations, daughter stations, conversion centers, equipment acquisition, etc. These costs are high. Who pays for these? Practically full nationwide rollout will take nothing less than 8 years. Let nobody deceive you. Tunji's thought this morning. Rest it there. And then Deji, just yesterday I had to go online to research on the gas-powered vehicles and even generators. It seems good to convert, but I don't trust the government to do the needful and cover all the bases. The government, past and present, have a very bad record of carrying us along. They blow their trumpets before crossing the line. That's what he says. And Joseph Menye's thought is next. It says, the Labour gave this administration 8 months advance notice to address the inflation due to the subsidy removal, but we are adamant and the shutdown on Monday. Today, the presidency is telling the CBN governor to furnish him with the facts and figure of the money in losses and new salary increment will cost the government in 2 days. And that's the finance minister. Well, how possible? Time wasting. And next, I find this message in from Judy. Judy says, please, it goes on seriously. But who is the Minister of Agriculture? We do not hear enough from that ministry. It needs to communicate more. The same with commissioners in the sub-national level. Who's the agricultural commissioner in states? Like, I don't know, for example, we might say we know Lagos State, but what in other states, they need to coordinate better among themselves. And one more before we get back to the paper now. Dan Okudua's thought here says, there is no state that cannot pay the minimum wage if resources are managed prudently. Dan Okudua's thoughts this morning. So, Lakunle, let's go over to security matter now, which is also connected to food in some way. The Punch says, pleased to establish full drone system to tackle security challenges.
Omas and Devoe, I know both of you know my position about policing and security in Nigeria already, and people who are regular listeners also know that starting from the very beginning, we have tried this central policing system for 100 years. Obviously, it isn't achieving the ultimate that we all want, or however, I'm not going to sit here and say, let's do state policing, let's do this and that and that. I always insisted, let us attempt to do something different, right? This might appear to be part of that something different that we need to do, right? So it then means that possibly where you need 10 pairs of legs or boots on ground, you just need one eye in the sky to do the job, right? Now, the part of it then that worries me is, what do we have as a nation to support this? Here we are, there's a strike today that the labor union is able to shut down the power system of the whole country. What happens to your drones when that happens? Where is the infrastructure to support this? Do we have enough of that? Are we creating a special infrastructure to support this separate from the one that exists? Do we have the trained people? How committed is the police to train their men to do this? Would they be recruiting specialists already to start off? So, like I always say, when people in government say things, they need to come with clear, some more information that helps us to understand what this thing is all about. Granted that security, the better security is the one that you don't
Oh, well, that's how we have to conclude it this morning. Thank you so much, Lakunle. The network there is just playing with your connection. Let's go
This is
over
where
to
we
get a
are.
few
This
messages
is
in
where we are
now.
headed.
Let's
Yeah.
just get a few messages in as we wrap it up this morning. And I'll find Joshua Folabi's quote here. If the government plans, I hope the people in such an environment will steal everything finished before harvesting. I planted cassava and corn in my 3 acres land before harvesting. Almost half of the whole well, stuff was stolen by people in the area. And Gary Newton says, what can this farmer do with a picture of some cows, feeding on, having a feast on maize that planted in a farm? So just a question, once again, issues facing us to be addressed. And then Cisco Delgado says, he's very disappointed in NLC. That's just how he puts it. And then comes Abbas Oladipo saying, people supporting labor for giving us problems because of salary for a few. That's how he settles it. And that's how we leave it here this morning and say thank you so much, Lakunle, for your time. We appreciate you. Do have yourself a great day. And to Devoe Okorie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Devoe. See you around.